Just this once. You know, it's a phrase we have absolutely all used. But have you ever stopped to notice how we almost never start our biggest, most life-altering mistakes with a massive leap? We really don't just jump straight into the deep end of bad decisions. Instead, we start with something tiny, something that seems completely, utterly unimportant in the grand scheme of things. It's just a small permission we give ourselves, and it usually begins with those exact 3 words, just this once. It seems so innocent, doesn't it? But as we're about to see, this seemingly harmless little phrase might just be the most dangerous lie we ever tell ourselves. So, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a fascinating set of ideas from our source material about human psychology, morality, and the hidden traps hiding right there in our everyday decision-making. We're going to look really closely at how our smallest moral compromises, the ones we barely even register in the moment, quietly shape our entire character over time. It's a totally captivating journey into the stories we tell ourselves, and honestly, by the end of this, you might just look at your daily choices in a completely different light. Section 1. The danger of exception. The illusion of a boundary. Okay, so here's the trap. We convince our brains that a specific action is just a temporary departure from our true selves. We tell ourselves that tomorrow will instantly revert back to exactly who we were before we crossed that line. We just love to believe that an exception doesn't change the rule. And this trap, it manifests in incredibly mundane ways. It's dropping a word we know we shouldn't say, a convenient little lie just to avoid an awkward conversation, a purchase we absolutely do not need, but we buy it anyway just to feel better for 5 minutes, a message we type out, know we shouldn't send, but we hit send anyway. Or maybe taking a tiny, petty revenge that, in the heat of the moment, feels entirely justified. Look, these actions feel completely harmless at the time, simply because they are just so small. Moving on to Section 2, the 20 Reais Dilemma, a real-world test. To really get how this works in practice, let's look at a story that anchors this whole philosophy. Imagine a guy who walks into the exact same bakery on the exact same commute every single day. Totally ordinary morning. He goes up to the counter, pays for his coffee, and the cashier hands him his change. But as he walks away, he counts the money and realizes the cashier made a mistake. He was given 20 reals too much. Now, it's not a fortune, right? But it's not nothing either. He stops, he looks back at the cashier, he looks around the bakery. Nobody noticed. For a few seconds, he actually thinks about giving it back. But then, right on cue, that little justification pops into his head. Hey, it's only 20 reals. So he pockets the money, walks out the door, and nothing happens. No alarms go off, nobody chases him down, he just goes to work. He might not even think about that money for the rest of the day. But by the next day, something has fundamentally changed. Not in the bakery, not with the cashier, in him. As the author notes, the problem wasn't the 20 reais. The problem was the discovery that it was possible to cross a small boundary. The real danger here was that quiet psychological realization that he could break a rule, cross a moral line, and face absolutely zero immediate consequences. That information is now permanently filed away in his brain. Next time, maybe it's 50 reais, maybe 100. The threshold hasn't just been crossed, it's been moved. Which brings us to Section 3, the anatomy of justification, how we defend our actions. We are about to explore how we are absolute experts, truly world-class masters at creating exceptions for ourselves, all while strictly judging the exact same actions when other people do them. Just notice the cognitive dissonance here. When someone else tells a lie, what do we call it? A lie, plain and simple. We judge it as a clear moral failing. But when we are the ones lying, we shift the narrative immediately. Suddenly, it's not a lie, it's a necessity. We tell ourselves the truth would have just caused too many problems. We frame our own deceit as this unavoidable burden we bravely had to take on. The mental gymnastics we do are staggering. And this double standard builds even further. Think about it. When someone else loses their temper, we say they're aggressive. When we lose our temper, we explain that we just had an incredibly exhausting day. When someone else seeks revenge, we call it cruelty. But when we seek revenge, we call it justice. We build these elaborate, bulletproof defenses for ourselves because we intimately know our own stories. We know our own hidden pain, our daily struggles, all the things nobody else sees. So we use that deeply personal context to basically write ourselves a free pass. We tell ourselves things like, well, I did it because they started it, or I bought it because I really deserved a reward. The author notes that some of these explanations might actually contain a grain of truth. But here's the absolutely pivotal question. Does this explain what I did, or does it just explain why I wanted to do it? Because having a motive, even a deeply emotional, understandable one, does not automatically transform a bad choice into a correct one. Explaining an action is not the same thing as justifying it. And recognizing that difference, that requires immense courage. Section 4, the snowball effect. When nothing happens. This leads us right to the most dangerous moment of all. The riskiest moment isn't actually when we get caught. It's when we do something we know is wrong, we brace ourselves for a punishment, and absolutely nothing happens on the outside. The world just keeps turning. The external world might continue normally, but inside our brain, a highly dangerous learning process is taking place. Every single time we act, we are teaching ourselves a lesson. When we lie and get away with it, our brain registers, lying can be useful. When we buy something impulsively to cure a bad mood, our brain learns, consuming can numb the pain. When we run away from a responsibility and feel that wave of relief, our brain records, fleeing works. We are literally wiring our brains to rely on bad habits because, in the short term, they successfully get the job done. And here is exactly how that internal learning spirals out of control. Repetition does all the heavy lifting. Step 1, it starts as an exception. Just this once. But do it again, and you hit step 2. It becomes familiar. Do it a few more times, and you reach step 3. It becomes normal. It's just part of your routine now. And eventually, tragically, you hit step 4. What started as a tiny exception has slowly morphed into an absolute, unbreakable necessity. This is how major life problems begin. Not with one giant, catastrophic decision, but with a sequence of tiny, half-open doors that we slowly walk through until we completely forget how to get back. The author uses a fantastic analogy here that hits the nail on the head. Imagine driving your car and suddenly realizing you've turned down the wrong street. You look at the map, you clearly see the mistake. But instead of turning the car around, you just keep driving, thinking, well, I've already turned down this road anyway. It sounds completely absurd for driving, right? But we do this with our lives all the time. We realize a habit is hurting us, but we continue. We know a relationship brings out our worst, but we stay. We foolishly transform our past mistakes into authorization to just keep failing. We confuse stubborn persistence with an inability to just turn back. Section 5, the other just this once. Flipping the script. Okay, here is where we pivot to an incredibly empowering twist. There is another way to use this exact same psychological mechanism. Instead of using just this once to excuse a failure, you can use it to force a breakthrough. You can tell yourself, just this once, I am not going to respond with anger. Just this once, I will tell the uncomfortable truth. Just this once, I will wait 24 hours before buying this. Just this once, I will put my pride aside. Just this once, I will choose to forgive. We can totally flip the script. We can challenge ourselves to do what is right in the micro moments, even when it's super uncomfortable, and especially when nobody is looking. And when we repeat these positive micro exceptions, something beautiful happens inside us. Virtue begins to become a habit. By forcing yourself to do the right thing just this once, over and over again, discipline eventually becomes entirely natural. Your consciousness gains breathing room. That anxious inner voice that used to have to scream at you to do the right thing, it finally stops yelling because it knows it's actually going to be heard. As the text reminds us, life is fundamentally made up of small doors. Some invite us in, some invite us out. Now, we can't always control what happens to us, but we absolutely control how we walk through those doors. There is a massive difference between someone who just reacts to life and someone who directs it. The person who merely reacts looks at a situation and asks the first question, what am I feeling? But the person who steers their life, they pause and they ask the second question, what do I want to do? But the author leaves us with a third question, the most important one of all. Whenever you are standing at a threshold, tempted to say just this once to a bad habit or hopefully a good one, you need to ask yourself this. After I do this, who will I be becoming? Because some choices offer peace for a few minutes, while others offer peace for a lifetime. And that tiny, seemingly insignificant just this once might actually be the opening chapter of the person you will ultimately become.